Do not let your lying eyes deceive you. The feminization of all of Disney's major franchises isn't in fact that big of an issue. Okay, what they've done to Star Wars, how they have butchered and killed Indiana Jones, I mean, that pales in comparison to how women can properly lead the MCU. It's MCU, okay? Like, you take a look at this. The Fantastic Four, right, sold more tickets on Fandango during its first day than any other movie this year. I mean, what an accomplishment, right? Like, it is selling its tickets a month ahead, okay, of its eventual release. Actually, it comes out at the tail end of July, so like 6 weeks ahead of its release. Just don't also pay attention to the fact that at this point in time, Jurassic Park hasn't put their tickets on sale, neither has Superman. But no, it has sold more tickets than, the Minecraft movie, which had legendary walk-up because nobody believed in the movie going into the theaters. It did better than Snow White. It also did better than Mission Impossible. It also did better than Lilo and Stitch. Okay, but again, how much money did those films do in pre-sales? Because, okay, cool, Fandango can come out and say that, yeah, the FF is selling better in pre-sales than any other movie. But what's its competition, and how much better is it doing than other movies, and what's the continued success that's like out there? So there's a bunch of caveats that are required on this, and the more I hear about Fantastic Four, and the more that you likely hear about Fantastic Four, I mean, is it talking you into the building? I don't think so. I don't imagine that this record is going to stay for that long, because we're eventually going to start to hear first reactions and the reviews are going to start dropping. And if the whole mid-label from those test screenings are to be believed, boy, we're going to be in for, what is this, the 1, 2, 3, actually, yeah, the appropriate fourth time the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, can't get it going in the theaters. And no, I don't think that it's an antiquated group. I don't think that it's too comic booky for normies to attach to. I don't think it's impossible to adapt to the screen. I mean, if you're taking on Galactus and you're letting Sue Storm and the female Silver Surfer do it, and then you're also being helped not by the Thing, who gets sidelined, okay, not by the Human Torch, who is just an effeminate fucking weirdo that hangs out in the corner, not the failing Reed Richards, who obviously fucks up because he's supposed to be the more scientific of the group, okay, he's going to be doing all of his calculations, and then ultimately he ends up failing to Galactus, and that they end up on the Excelsior and head on over to proper 616. So I guess it's kind of based in so much as, yeah, when the women take over, that means the end of the world is coming, which is way too biblical for anything that Marvel could potentially be putting out. So I guess it's just another opportunity and another example of the writers in the MCU being too incompetent to not properly portray exactly what they're doing. But who knows, maybe it'll have a longer cinematic run than Snow White, because, hey, next week if you're feeling bored and you got nothing else to do and you're contemplating self-deletion, I guess you could put on something that makes you feel better by not being associated to it, with Disney rushing Rachel Zegler's Snow White to streaming in 1 week, with a hurried announcement and accelerated schedule. Well, that's hilarious. The live-action reimagining of Snow White is set to premiere on Disney Plus on Wednesday, June 11th. Okay, this release comes 83 days after the theatrical debut on March 21st. It's actually long. Is it longer? Oh, no, because Cap 4 went to streaming, what was that, earlier this week or the beginning of last week? But yeah, Cap 4 came out President's Day, so that was in February, right? Anyways, both of them were huge failures. A minimum, 90-day theatrical to streaming window is expected for Disney films, but it can awfully be significantly longer, which, I don't think Fantastic Four is going to be this type of historic flop that Snow White was, okay? I think Marvel could shuffle Thunderbolts out of the theaters before that 90-day window and flop it onto Disney Plus, because they'll need to go ahead and wash the taste of Ironheart out of their mouth as quickly as possible. But yeah, man, like, you take a look at the announcement, because it came here on Disney Plus. I seen that and it was like, yeah, of course, but who exactly is going to be tuning in? All right, nobody. But yeah, this guy's wrong. Superman drops, but this is also the same normie audience. that Disney's trying to appeal to with their slop. So if you can't read a calendar, bro, anyways, no, don't think I will. I'm curious if it is bad as people were saying. Okay, so I guess that's one person that might give it a chance and then just come back and go, yeah, actually, you know what? It wasn't as bad as people were saying. It was in fact worse. Lol, no, I can wait. We will be watching Wicked instead, I guess, man. Because at least from what I hear, Wicked's like a better musical. It has an equally insufferable cast, and they give equally as cringe, a little bit different type of cringe interviews. But yeah, the Wicked cast is pretty pathetic. But unlike Wicked, which is getting a sequel at the end of the year, I don't think we're going to be getting a Snow White 2 anytime soon. But another feminized take on an otherwise masculine brand has hit the theaters, and he had Ballerina. Okay, now we talked about the opening weekend predictions and the very interesting review bargo, to say the least. I think that was earlier this week. I'm getting mixed up when it comes to the release dates of the videos. There's just been so much stuff to talk about this year so far, so forgive me. But yes, they had what was the press release from Lionsgate that said, yeah, if you'd like to share your immediate positive social media reactions, go ahead and do that. But the review embargo is for, you know, this certain date, and it's like, oh, we kind of know what's going to be coming on that one. And lo and behold, Ballerina Rotten Tomatoes score the lowest in the John Wick franchise, which is very interesting. And it's I'm just also wondering, it's like, are they being fair to the John Wick franchise? Okay, because there's one good film and 3 other ones. But all right, the John Wick spin-off Ballerina, starring Ana de Armas, who is tremendous. Okay, she's quite talented and quite likable. So I guess if you're going to go down this path, this ill-advised path that has never worked before, I mean, paging Mad Max, paging Furiosa, it's like you could make a worse pick than her. But it officially opens this weekend. It just opened. The first batch of reviews are now out from the critics, and they're mixed. 66 reviews currently accounted for. Ballerina's Rotten Tomato score stands at 76%, which is the lowest of the franchise. John Wick 4 and 94%. Christ almighty, Chapter 3 gets an 89%. A film that I ask, can anybody remember? Okay, because at least the Chapter 2 has that incredibly cringe train sequence, but it has an 89%. And the best and only John Wick film with an 86%. I mean, that's kind of crazy. But all right. I guess there was just a lot of critics that really like that stupid stairs sequence in 4, but whatever. Rotten Tomatoes fan score will become available, and I'm sure it'll be, I don't know, man, because it's really tough to tell, because if people like Lilo and Stitch, they're probably also going to go, I like hot chick with gun. And it's like, all right, cool, fantastic. You're actively killing art by just clapping at slop, but congratulations, because I've heard this compared to another female superhero, which at this point in time, like John Wick is pretty much a superhero. So I've heard this, compared to, well, here it is, okay. Ballerina screenings, early screenings tonight. I guess when this article was written, it has the Thursday previews. Officially launches on Friday. Estimates will open at around 30 to 40 million on the trades. Not great. Are comparing the box office to, oh boy, that's a name that I haven't heard in a very long time, Madam Web. And it's funny because Madam Web, okay, sorry Ballerina, sorry Ana de Armas, because we got to go to something very likely to be of lesser quality, and specifically when it comes to lead actresses, a considerable downgrade with Dakota Johnson, which I don't understand Dakota Johnson. It's kind of like Florence Pugh. I don't get her either, okay? Like Dakota Johnson, she's as mid gets, and Florence Pugh would be like your 4th option if you were asking a chick out for the prom. Like, that's where I would put her. Maybe she's nice, maybe she's great. She just is not that attractive, but I keep getting told that she is attractive. Same with Dakota Johnson. Okay, cool. She got whipped in 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, I don't need anybody else's sloppy 49ths, okay? Like, I don't care who your parents are. Learn to act or something like that, or at least hire an agent that can properly get you in the MCU and not in the Sony's offshoot. But it's so funny, right? Because a year on from this stuff, and she was funny, but she was also throwing everybody under the bus at the time when Madam Web was coming out, wasn't taking any responsibility herself. And now, well, she just simply doubles down on this. As Dakota Johnson says, Madam Web flop wasn't my fault. Right, because you phoned in that performance so goddamn hard. Because at least Sydney Sweeney, right, who is, man, like, I really wish that she could act as well, because she seems like she seems really great. Like, I know there's two big reasons that everybody really wants to simp hard for her, but like, she's actually, and I know not to sound hack or anything, but she's got a great personality. I know that sounds totally trite, but all the interviews and everything that I see about Sweeney, it's like I really want her to succeed, and for her to not go down the whole Amanda Seyfried, Jennifer Lawrence path of just, trying to ride on their looks and then they hit 30, or have Harvey Weinstein's kid and then just fall off a cliff. But she was enthusiastic about her role. Like, she was really getting excited about, learning about her character as Spider-Girl. I forget who the character behind the costume is, but yeah, she was talking about, how she was reading a lot of her books and really getting into the role, and she was fine enough in the limited amount of screen time that she got. But Dakota Johnson, all of her deliveries were fucking trash in this movie. Like, she was really bad. And yeah, it didn't help that she had atrocious dialogue. It didn't help that she had an absurd plot where she was just portaling from place to place. But you could have did something to make this a little bit better. But no. It wasn't my fault. Spoken like a true nepo, baby. Decisions are made in Hollywood by people who don't have a creative bone in their body. Oh, but you were talking up S.J. Clarkson, the director of this, trash just so much. It's so funny how now that she can't do anything for your career, you'll go ahead and throw her under the bus. Strange times. Dakota Johnson recently told the LA Times on her Materialist press tour that Madam Web flopping with critics and audiences wasn't her fault. The Sony-backed comic book movie was a notorious punching bag in the winter of 2024. Yeah, it came out right. Oh yes, because it's coming out on Valentine's Day, and I predict that you'll love it. In fact, I predict that you'll see it twice. Remember, that was Dakota Johnson on press tours. Spider-Man, here he comes. There he goes. Idiot. Earning a dismal $43 million at the domestic box office and 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Johnson headlined the film as Cassandra Webb, a paramedic who, yes, gains the ability and loses the functionality of her legs and the ability to see the future in a near-death experience. Yeah, exactly. When she gets blinded at the climactic fight at the fireworks factory. God, this shit is stupid. It wasn't my fault, Johnson said about the movie. There's this thing that happens nowhere. Now, where a lot of creative decisions are made by committee or made by people who don't have a creative bone in their body, and it's really hard to make art that way, or to make something entertaining that way. And I think, unfortunately, with Madam Web, it started out as something and turned into something else, and I was just sort of along for the ride at that point. But that happens. Bigger budget movies fail all the time. Well, that's not fair. A lot of people got enjoyment out of how bad that film was, because it wasn't like an ideologically terrible movie. It wasn't like what the Fantastic Four is very likely to be. Just, hey, look at that. It's a woman. She's in charge of the Fantastic Four, and it's so great. We got a female Silver Surfer, and the rest of the guys in the galaxy suck, and that's why we can fail in front of Galactus better than any of you men can. And it's going to be so fantastic. I can't wait for that thing to be a disaster, and for everybody to blame, Marvel, Kevin Feige, and probably Bob Iger as a result for that. And just outdated concepts in the Fantastic Four. You can't do it. It's just too old school. But no, Madam Web was just like, it was bad. Like, just old school bad. Incompetently directed, edited. The ADR was atrocious. Like, Ezekiel Sims, the main villain. I bet you nobody remembers that name. But Ezekiel Sims, all of his lines were ADR'd and none of it made any goddamn sense. But Dakota Johnson being uniquely terrible as Madam Web, as Madame Web, as the Webster herself. She bears a lot of the responsibility for why that film was uniquely and totally unwatchable, outside of it being, a purely comedic experience. But yes, they fail all the time. Don't worry about it. Come watch me and Pedro Pascal. I wish I was joking. Making this materialist movie where, she's the object of desire in a love triangle between Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans. Fucking gag me, which is probably what she's wanting to have happen to her in this A24 fucking disaster. Stay in these indie slop films and let this serve as a reminder that in your attempt to feminizing all of these brands, trying to push these female superheroes to the forefront, they may love you, okay? The freaks on social media may love you, but the moment this shit fails, they're gonna lump all of its failure on your shoulders, and they're not gonna take any responsibility for the mess in the aftermath. Oh well. Given the fact that she played Madam Web, shouldn't she have seen this coming? I'll see myself out. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.